Hi there, I'm Brian Whitmore, director of the Russia program here at CEPA, and this is a Vertical video. The Kremlin sent a message to Moscow this weekend, and that message was, resistance is futile. Not only will resistance get you beaten with truncheons, arrested, and hauled off in police vans, but in the case of Alexei Navalny, resistance could even get you poisoned while you're in detention, which seems to be a fate common to many opponents of Vladimir Putin's regime, both at home and abroad. The Kremlin's disproportionate response to this weekend's protests against the regime's refusal to allow opposition candidates to compete in upcoming elections to the Moscow City Duma represented its largest crackdown against public dissent in years. And this was revealing not only about the Putin regime's approach to domestic politics as its popularity falls amid declining living standards, but also about its approach to foreign affairs. The crackdown in Moscow came after Ukraine held lively presidential and parliamentary elections that were widely judged to be free, fair, and highly competitive, and which captured the imagination and drew the envy of Russia's opposition. And the crackdown in Moscow came as month-long protests in Georgia continued against the Kremlin's attempts to undermine that country's democratic process and replace it with Moscow-style oligarchic rule. The Putin regime isn't just threatened by even the slightest spark of a democratic awakening at home, it's profoundly threatened by the success of democratic governance among its neighbors. It's profoundly threatened by resistance not being futile. Which means that this weekend's disproportionate crackdown in Moscow could be a harbinger of new aggression outside Russia's borders. Because make no mistake, Putin would love nothing more than to see the scenes from Moscow this weekend repeated in Kyiv and in Tbilisi. The Putin regime is caught in a trap. In order to preserve its power, it not only has to preserve kleptocratic and autocratic rule at home, it also has to promote kleptocratic and autocratic rule abroad. This puts it in a state of constant war against the minority of Russians willing to take to the streets. But it also puts it in a constant state of war with the overwhelming majority of Ukrainians and Georgians who see democracy as their birthright and who are willing to fight for it. Keep telling us what you think on Twitter and on Facebook. I'm Brian Whitmore, and this was a Vertical Video.